Well, good morning, and we're about to start up on this leaded piece. This will just be a tutorial for people that are either very interested in how this stuff is done or those that are trying to learn a little something. And I'm going to learn at the same time you do. So anyway, I talked yesterday about this thing in the video, and we've measured off a section of the border. This is the Yakagani glass that we're going to use for the border, and a considerable amount of this glass will be used in the background in this little 16 by 16 piece. And so what I've done so far here is, if you can see, there's a faint line right here, a faint black line. And that's I measured, generally it looks like I need about a 25 millimeter piece. And so I want to compensate a little bit for, let me grab a piece of lead here. I want to compensate a little bit for the heart. There we go. The heart of this lead, which is that vertical section of the lead cane. And it's pretty narrow, so you don't have to get real wild and crazy worried about how thick it is. So I've set this line up at 24.5 millimeters, which is easy enough to do on this little guide right here. Anyway, 24.5. I'm trying to look. There it is. 24.5 right there. And I'll check that again. Sometimes you can make a mistake. Okay, so there's 24.5. Okay, and all I've done is take a plain old aluminum. You could use, I don't know, I like a metal because wooden yardsticks and stuff wear out and the sides become indented a little bit. So then I just put a piece of masking tape on the back of this thing so it doesn't move around much on the glass, and I put a mark on there. Now, there are some, let me grab another tool over here. There are some people that have heavier weights and stuff to run down alongside this line with. Here's a tool, this extruded aluminum, and this is an antique. I swear this is 40 years old. A person came in my shop, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, and said, well, I need to get one of those. I said, well, it shouldn't be hard to get. It's a Fletcher. Fletcher is a company that makes, I'm looking for my camera here, makes this glass cutter, the old school Fletcher carbide glass cutter with a ball tip. So I said, it should be easy to find. Well, I got on the internet for him. I couldn't find one of these anywhere. I'm talking eBay or anywhere else. And it's quite heavy. Great tool. Not quite long enough to get the job done here. It's got a square edge for you to run your glass cutter down, and then a straight edge or a thin edge right here to mark with. So on anything that's 24 inches or less, I'll usually use this to strip things off with. It just works great. We'll do it when we come across this sheet going this way. Because this glass has a color grain. Glass really doesn't have a cutting grain, it has a color grain. And so the color on this glass grain is running the direction my hand is showing here. And so the sides of this window, let's just walk over here, take my camera. All right, the sides of this piece and all of the color grain, I want to go from bottom to top. So that means that this vertical side here and this vertical side here would have the color grain running from bottom to top. And then the bottom of this thing, I don't really, since all of this interior field is going to be running from bottom to top, I don't want this thing running sideways. So what that means is that when we come back over here and cut this thing, we'll make one strip across here. I'm not really worried if we don't have enough glass to do both sides, although I think there's about enough. I could actually measure. It doesn't make any difference. If there's not enough, we'll cut another piece. But I'll cut this one strip, and then I'll go ahead and do another 24.5 millimeter strip across here. And that'll be the bottom. Now, I don't think there's enough to go all the way across the bottom on the top and the bottom. I don't know. It's going to be real close. Well, if it does, there's not enough, we'll cut it anyway. So now the next thing I want to talk about is I'm not infallible. I make mistakes. There are times that The glass just doesn't do what I anticipated it's going to do. 99 times out of 100, people will blame the glass cutter, or they'll blame the temperature in the room, they'll blame the glass, but it's me. If there's a problem with this thing, I did something wrong. And I'll talk about this again for people that are early into this stuff. And some people find these long sheets of glass really challenging to cut. And a long time ago, they used to be for me. Now, having said that, if something goes wrong on this piece here, it was my fault, and I know exactly what I did wrong if that happens. And what happens is I'm not going to use a straight edge on this thing. I don't want anything to impede or alter the pressure that I'm going to apply down to this glass. And the key to stripping this piece off in one strip is continuous pressure. What I want to say, it stays the same. In other words, we don't vary it. And what happens to you if you have a problem cutting a piece like this, like I think I was doing a piece, I did a piece of some green emerald glass here the other day. It was stripped a piece off and it went about 8 or 10 inches and then just shot off this direction. Well, that was my fault because I applied either too much pressure or not enough. And you can apply too much pressure and you can certainly apply not enough. There's a window of the adequate amount of pressure to cut this glass. Now, this is Yokogani, and a lot of people say, well, you need to heat this up. You need to do this, that, and all this kind of stuff. Well, maybe that helps. I don't know. I just cut the glass, and generally it works. If I strip this thing off, about 9 times out of 10, I'm going to get it to work right. What happens is, as I move along here, and I'm going to go slow because that's how I get these. This is expensive glass. I want this one strip. So if it takes a little more time to get this strip off here, that's fine. I don't want to have any problems. But what happens if this goes wrong is that as I move across here, if there's a spot across here where I vary or let up on the pressure, my hand gets tired, there's a bump in the glass, and this is handmade glass, so there are some infractions along here that make this tiny wheel, there you go, this tiny wheel a little more difficult to get across there. But anyway, if I let up on that pressure right there, and then we continue on it down, when I run the fracture on this thing, well, we're going to score it, right? It's not cut yet. And then we'll start a fracture. If I run that fracture, and that fracture runs down to where I let up on the pressure, or did not apply the right amount of pressure, that fracture runs to that spot, and then it says, oh, I'm lost. Where do I go? Well, it'll just take whatever path of least resistance, wherever it decides to go. Now, if you're lucky, it'll go that way, and you'll end up with a loss of that curve out there if you're going to cut these strips in rectangles, right? Or if you're real unlucky, that fracture goes that way. And I've had that happen. That's heartbreaking because now you've got this sheet cut in half. Well, I can use that sheet, but I'd much rather this sheet stay intact so I can cut off or take off whatever parts of this thing that I want. So the idea here is to get this strip off here, just that strip, no problems, nothing else, no drama. Okay, so I've got this camera sort of set up here, and I'm thinking that I'm going to set back up way out here and turn it back this way. So hopefully, now my hand may hide part of what I'm doing down there. Let's go right here so if I can just get you. I want to try to get, this is a long piece of glass, and so you can see as much as you can. Okay, all I'm going to do is I put my thumb right on top of the back of this thing, and that allows me to add a little more consistent pressure. That's the word I was looking for earlier. Consistent pressure. Now, I'm not trying to bury this thing, and if you've done enough of this stuff, you start to get an idea. Now, I'm going to run right down that black line. Whoops, so you're already coming into some of those infractions I was talking about. Now, this looks slow, and somebody on one of these videos long time, boy, this thing is really in a hole right there. Listen to that. That's actually running into kind of a trough across there. So we may have a little bit of trouble with this one. I don't know. We'll make it work. Now, like I said, I'm going slow, and I'm just applying the pressure. I might have been better off taking that camera and pointing it toward me. When we do this other piece, we'll do that. So if you're not seeing anything, I think just the back of my arm. You see, I'm just moving down here trying to keep the pressure consistent. There was a flaw, some kind of something going on right in the earliest stages of this scoring. Okay, we got down to the end. What I'm going to do next time is I'll put that camera back this way and you can see it coming toward me. I apologize for that. This isn't the easiest thing to get on video. Okay, let's turn this around and I want you to see how I'm going to start this thing. Well, I've got this thing hanging off the edge of the table here. And this is a Silberschnitt German runner. And what I'm going to do, we're going to try a couple of things here. I want that whole strip. I'm going to see if I can see that little bump right there. That's going to go under the score mark, and then this rubber platform goes above it, and you can see what it's going to do. It's going to push that glass on both sides of that score mark down on that bump. And I'm thinking that this thing, if we're going to have trouble, we're going to have trouble right here because I could hear it doing weird stuff. So let's just try a slight bit of pressure here. Oh, wow, I love that. Good gracious, I'm fooling myself here. All right, now I want to make sure you can see me get this thing off. I expected to have a little more trouble with that. We're not done yet. Okay, now the fracture's somewhere right in here. So we're going to take it nice. Oh, man, this is going good so far. Now I'm just being real gentle now. There it is. Okay, that's what we're looking for. Right there. Okay, now, that's a 24.5 millimeter piece. So let's do this. We're going to cut that vertical. Well, this one was running vertical up the side of our little window. And now we're going to go and cut. I'll move this up where you can see it. Oh, now you'll be able to see all of this, I think. Let me back this thing up a little bit. Boy, I'd like to have, I would, really. If I had my druthers, I'd be in some studio with all the equipment set up, a couple of cameras, and I would take the mystery out of every bit of this stuff. And I could do it, but I don't have all that kind of stuff. But I'd love to do it. Okay, now what we want to do, well, you'll see the whole thing here. We want this 24.5 millimeter section right across here. And there's my, see, I put a little tick mark, 24.5, 24.5. Let me look at that again. Sometimes that's 24.5, okay? And a 24.5 here. Okay? And then let's put this. Now, we could get by, let's do this. We could get by this time without the mark going across. Now, this, I could about guarantee getting this off here if I just go my old method. And what happens here, and I might do this and I might not. What I've done is I've laid this square section of that aluminum piece. This is short enough we might be able to get this to work. And I'm setting it. I'm compensating where this is set for the side of this yoke that holds that tiny wheel. So you got to be backed off of there to get the wheel in the right spot. So I want that wheel to run right down the center of that black mark. Black mark. Black mark. And, you know, I don't want any problems with this, so I'm going to get a little bit of lubricant here. And I keep it in a little jar here. I cut the bottom off a jar And I got some cotton here, and so I don't have too much. And all you're really doing here, you're not lubing the wheel, you're lubing the axle that the wheel is on. They're nice and smooth, see, nice and slick. Oh, look out, fool. All right. Now, I had that set where I wanted it and hit it and knocked it out. Okay, we're back to the center, and I'm going to look here in just a second. Make sure you can see me. Yeah. Okay, all I'm going to do is hold this cutter a different direction now, and I'm going to come across here. Okay. Get this stuff off here. Now, believe it or not, it's a little less foolproof that direction, because normally if it's a real expensive glass and I'm worried about it, I'll just do that whole thing by hand the same way I did this. But I'm trying to show that, ooh. There you go. All right. I was trying to show how if you pay attention and get your stuff figured out, you can use the edge of this or a tool like that, if you can find one, and get this section off there. So that's Yakagani, which actually, I think it's undeserved criticism of how difficult it is to cut. If you gather up a method that works for you, and you concentrate, use really good tools, and we're going to take our tools back over to the other side. Use really good tools and get a methodology of cutting this stuff down, then you're not going to have the issues. Okay. And it'll work for you. Now we're going to reset the camera here. Oh yeah, I just, I kind of fantasize about I see those guys on YouTube with these fabulous studio with all the cameras set up and everything the guy does, you can see what he's doing. Well, that'd be great. But I'm just an old man working in a shop. All right, I want to turn this thing. Well, we'll work in this area right here first. Okay, now a couple of things going on here. We're gonna be doing some lead too. Okay, now the first thing I want to do is get on the grinder and just clean that little edge off there. Give me a second. Oh yeah, we're always prepared. I should, I talk about this. Let me show you this thing. There's my foot switch. See here? You fire your grinder with his foot switch. I like that. Okay, give me a second. Won't be able to say. I just took a little bit of the sharp edge off that thing. We get it cut the length we want it, we'll clean it up a little more if we need to. Okay, with copper foil, of course, you needed a little. Oh man, boy, we're on the money here. Look at this. Oh, I hope you can see that. There we go. All right, now, what do we want here? This is going to be amber. So really what we're really doing here is just looking and making sure that we have I just really like the way that came out. So what we're going to do is, let's just go cut this one down here in the bottom. This is going to take some jockeying around because we're working with the amber glass here, and there's a red piece and the amber glass here. So this corner right here is going to take a little playing around to get it right. So we're going to get our marker. We'll just cut one here. Okay. And you know what, before I do that, let's put a mark right here. And we can see that mark, right? I want to make sure you can see what I'm doing. Oh yeah, you can see. Okay, I put a mark, let's back it out. I put a mark right there on the zinc to tell me where this line connects, right? Okay, and push this up into here. Okay. That ought to work. And what I want to do here, it'd probably be pretty smart to slip this in and actually look and see if we're too wide here or whatever. I want to smooth that out just a little bit. Hang on. I always say the hard part of, or for me, the hard part of these stained glass windows is actually just getting started. Once I get into a routine here where we start moving, and you know what we need to do here, and I remember this, anybody who paid attention to the video yesterday, we opened this one up, and this one we didn't open, so see what I'm doing? Come down here where you can see. Just open that up a little bit. Now, like I say, the hard part is starting. Okay, before I cut that, I thought, you know, wait a minute. I want to make sure I'm going to intersect this thing over here. Oh, yeah. I don't know whether you, I hope you can see this. There's the pencil line right under that thing going clear across. Okay, here comes the beauty. And I think we could we're going to get on this side of this line to cut that, and that's going to be, hit that thing exactly. All right, so I want to cut on this side of that black line. So let's just back that out of there. Whoa. And get our cutter right here. And like I said, you can see what I'm doing, right? We're going to cut right on the inside of that line. All right, stick that back up there. That looks just a hair off to me. Okay, and I'm about to talk about, to the one or two people that are listening to this, oh yes. Okay, now there's some decisions need to be made. Are we going to run the lead clear across here? Or are we going to run this lead here clear up to there? Well, I think I prefer to run a single piece of lead up this side, put a piece there, and then put this piece in, and this piece in with a piece of lead there, and run across there. So I don't have this one cut yet. I guess we could do that. Why not? You know what? If I do, let's see. If I want to cut this lead across here, I think I want this upper piece of lead to be a single piece. So let's cut this piece of lead here. We'll get that out of the way, because we're going to run one piece of lead all the way up. So let's get a piece of lead. And I'm just going to trim us off a piece off this big hunk I have laying here. Yeah, here we go. Let's just get this. Okay. Now, I use this set of lead dikes a lot for smaller stuff, and then if I'm going to cut in a bunch of curves and stuff, I'll use this, what is this thing, Ronin? Yeah, Ronin. $30 on Amazon. That's, oh man. You know, I'm going to demo that tool one time here right now. Okay, say we were, get the Ronin out of the way right now. Got a lot of weird intersections up here. And So let's say we were trying to, that's not even a hard one there. Let's do one maybe a little more difficult. Can you see what I'm doing? Yeah. All right. And this is a piece of scrap off the end of this, so we're not losing anything. But let's do this. So let's say that we had this glass in here and we want to, that one right there. Okay, now that much of an angle with this thing is impossible. Well, it's not impossible, but it's not easy. Now, my friend out in California, D. Carter Ray, she's got one of these Rodins, but she actually prefers, she's got a putty knife. Well, I'll give you this little tip. This was her deal. Now, this is a putty knife I use for other stuff, but she's got that putty knife razor sharp, and she likes to push her hand down and cut her lead with the putty knife. You know, everybody's got a way. That way works for her. She likes it. Now, here we go. So here's my Ronin. All right, and I'm going to turn it back this way. Okay. And that's not an easy angle to get right there, so I want you to be able to see this. So just set that blade right down. I'm going to go back up in here just a little bit. And now that's just miraculous. It didn't crush the lead. Now see, a lot of the time the issue with whacking on this lead is it crushes that face of the lead. Then you got to take another tool and open that up, and then you've got the end of it chewed up. That's just crazy. That is so good. And talk about a time saver. All right, but we don't need that. We need a, now I'm going to cut myself a smaller piece to work with here. All right. Okay, so let's go back here. This is slow going on. We'll stop here in a minute. We don't want to wear people out with this stuff. Okay, so since we said that we wanted to go a single piece of lead all the way up, then that means that this piece of lead and this piece of lead here are going to be smaller pieces. And in order to, and after a while you'll get to where you don't need to do this, but I'm cutting us another little piece of lead right here. And I'm going to show you what that's for in just a second. Okay, so here's our piece of lead going in, right? There it is. Now, where do you cut this thing to intersect? So it just intersects the piece that's going up. Well, you just take that little piece you just cut, you put it right there, and then you mark that right there. Yeah, you can see what I'm doing. All right, now that tells me where to cut this thing. So we can take this little simple pair of lead dikes. See where I'm at? Okay. Put that in right there. And we're going to get our old school, we'll just use that same little piece. And set this right here. There we go. So that when we take this piece of lead straight up and down, it's going to fit there just like that. And see, the less space you have between these two, the easier it's going to be to solder. There you go. And I'm seeing, this is just me, there's one little thing. This is off just there you go. Okay. When you get ready to do this stuff, you want to square it. Make sure that lead line is square. So when I get ready to solder, I would pull that and make sure that that's ready to be soldered and make that nice and square. What happens there is that these lines are going to end up straight if you pay attention to every bit of this. So now here, let's see, we're going to go up all the way with that lead. And we've gone about as far as we can go without cutting more glass. In fact, we're going to have to cut the amber now. So I'll let that go. You've seen me cut the Yokogani. I'll cut the amber myself. When we start fitting in more lead and coming across here, we'll come back and do some little video. But right now, you've got the idea of what I'm trying to do. Okay, we'll take a piece of lead, the one we have here. We'll put a piece of amber here and a piece of lead there. Put these in, then that'll allow us to run this one strip. Let me show you this thing here. We'll want to take this one strip of lead all the way to the top. From the top all the way to the bottom. And then that'll allow us to come in here, put this amber in. There we go. This amber in, this green across here, and take that one strip of lead and run from that long strip here all the way across. The idea is as much length or longer pieces of lead that you can get, because that makes this thing look cleaner. Makes it, the straight lines look straight, the curves look more curved or symmetrical rather. And it just ends up at the end of the whole piece, the piece will look so much better. There was something I was just ready to say and I forgot what it was. It was about lead lines. Hell, I don't remember now. Anyway, well, that's about what I have with this one. I'll get going here, and then this will start forming up pretty quick. Once I start, fire it up here. And you can see what I was trying to do with these lines. See how the color green is running now from the bottom of the window to the top on not only, we want to be sure we're running that. You can get real screwed up because this is a square. So if you're not paying attention, you turn around down here. You got to make the transition somewhere. So I'm going to have them run from there. So this will go into there and then run up. You could have it turn in that direction, but I think I'd prefer to go that way. So anyway, well, my color grain will be running this direction. The lead lines are real important to keep them nice and clean. Okay, that's all I have. Listen, let me undo this phone. And if you have questions, there will be a few people get something out of this. The vast majority of just folks that are looking at beautiful stained glass probably won't get much out of it. However, if someone is very interested in the history of glass or how it's done, this is old school here. This is going right back way into the 1800s and beyond. So the only difference between the way I'm doing it and they did is I got electric soldering iron and a grinder. And that grinder makes things a lot easier. But anyway, we're going to have a pretty window here. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. If you have any more questions or any questions, be sure and ask.